So sometimes we're working with organizations where they're a really nice and friendly bunch. Like we feel welcomed when we come in and meet them. And on the surface, they think they have psychological safety. But once we go below the surface, we realize that actually they struggle to have hard conversations. An example of that is you'll get to end of year and everyone seems to be performing well, but no one wants to give bad feedback because they know it impacts people's bonuses. The truth is they should just have conversations early and often about feedback so there's no surprises by the end of the year. But because they struggle to have hard conversations, they put it off to that last moment, and then that's the impact. Any of you been in those cultures as well, where you've seen that there's really friendly, really nice bunch, really get on, they're friends outside of work, but actually it makes it even more difficult to have the hard conversations?
Definitely. I think the thing is we want this culture of connection, but also we need to be having deeper conversations and deeper connection. And it's very normal that in so many cultures, there will be times when there are difficult conversations, when feedback needs to be given, and it's how we're able to grow. But often I think people don't feel like they have that necessarily the psychological safety there to do so, or that perhaps seemingly they do, they all connect and they all get on quite well, but we're not knowing how to approach these conversations. And we're always trying to be nice, but there's a very big difference between being nice and being kind. And sometimes it is about having to compassionately give this feedback and have these deeper conversations.
Yeah, I like that. What's one or two things that we could do to help people and encourage people watching this to face into those harder conversations?
I think there's ways that we can frame them and ways of approaching difficult conversations, which we can do with empathy. I think when you say the word feedback, I think people sometimes get quite nervous thinking about it, but actually we can lay the groundwork, we can show empathy, and we can approach it with curiosity. So I think asking questions, and being very specific, like if something has happened, for example, say there's a scenario and there's been a situation at work that has upset you, there's a way of approaching it and saying, I really would love to have this conversation with you, and then asking those questions and showing empathy and curiosity to have them without feeling like you're not going to have the conversation at all. Because if we don't have the conversations, things don't change, things don't improve. So it's just about thinking how we can approach them with empathy. And one other thing I found to be really effective also is really separating our needs versus our expectations of how other people should behave. And the more we understand that as well, we understand what difficult conversations we need to have and which ones we don't. And then we can focus on using empathy to actually have those discussions.
I love that. And whenever I think about high performance and athletes, I think about a lot of practice that goes into that arrival moment. Like if I'm a sprinter, I'm training literally the whole year for a big event like the Olympics. Or if I'm an F1 driver, I'm literally driving every day to practice for race day. But at work, we don't think about it in the same way. We don't think about the fact that we should be practicing these conversations rather than just venting to a friend. I should actually practice having this conversation with empathy before going into the actual real life scenario. So I think one of the biggest things we can do is create a psychologically safe environment where we can practice more so that we're not going into that conversation for the first time when having what looks like a hard conversation.
Definitely. I think being prepared for it and practicing this is so important.